Hello, welcome the fuck back to Sad Boy Hours.
What is the most shocking thing someone confessed while on their deathbed? My grandfather was in the hospital in a pretty nasty state. He barely could speak, but he made it clear to us he had something to say. He had my mother get him a piece of paper and a pen, thinking he has some important words to leave us with in case he doesn't have the chance later. My mom does just that. There's silence in the room as he scribbles something onto the paper, with my mother and her two siblings waiting in anticipation. My grandfather finishes, and with a big smile turns the paper for us to see. "I've got a girlfriend," it read, as he pointed to Anna, a neighbor and friend of his. The goofball ended up pulling through and living several more years, depending on whether or not he was still married to your grandmother. That's adorable. Definitely an important piece of information left out of this story. My uncle confessed to being in the KKK and said he wasn't sorry for it. I told him that's okay because I wasn't sorry he was dying. This is pretty savage on both sides. Oh great then, you'll be covered in a white sheet soon enough. My mom told me about the death of her father, my grandfather, and his last words to her. She said he was on his deathbed and it was obvious he was nearing the end. He motioned her over to tell her something. She went over, leaned in close, expecting some declaration of his love for her or some deeply insightful. He said the good family silverware is hidden in the ventilation system about 15 feet out from the furnace. She looked at him like he was crazy. He said, "What? We travel a lot and that's where I hid it. That shit's expensive." He died the next morning. This is my favorite. So practical. No joke, real silverware is expensive shit. Go price out the nice stuff on Amazon and you'll quickly see that it can be thousands and thousands of dollars. I met a lady on a train to Edinburgh who was really nervous because she was on the way to meet her brother for the first time in 70 years. Her parents had told her that he died when he was 1, but they'd given him away because they couldn't afford so many kids. She didn't find out he was still alive until her mother confessed it on her deathbed. I'm a medical student and I had a female patient who was new to our practice who was HIV positive. I needed to ask her how she got the virus. That is sexual or IV drugs. She tells me it was sexually transmitted, and the only reason she got tested was because her partner of 3 years' last words to her as he was dying in hospice was, I'm sorry, I wanted to tell you. Forgive me. Heavy stuff. Edit. To be clear, he died of cancer and not of AIDS. Some people believe it was AIDS that killed him and my patient should have already known at this point. This was not the case. Another edit. She has been positive for 20 years, no symptoms, and is undetectable. All her numbers are great. Medicine has come a long way, and HIV does not equal a death sentence in most patients. My grandmother was super religious my whole life, always going to church and doing right by her community. In her last house she said she really did not believe in God and wished she had not wasted all that time in her life doing what she thought others wanted her to do. It was pretty crazy for her husband, my dad and aunt to hear her say that. My personal belief is that this is probably more common than we think. Only your grandmother, unlike most, had the guts to fess up. This was surprising to me but more sad than anything. I was always close to my granny but I never had the heart to tell her I'm gay as I had only heard her say negative things before about homosexuality. I didn't want to upset her and cause family problems. Towards the end she had suffered strokes and was unable to talk. My mother and uncle were in the hospital with her while she was dying. During this time my uncle confessed to my mother that granny had always known I am gay and that she didn't care and love me. I regret not having the balls to tell her before she died. Me and all of my cousins were gathered around my grandfather's hospice bed as he lay dying. Each and every one of my cousins, there's a lot of us, gave him a kiss and tried to talk to him, or said they loved him, etc. But he wouldn't respond to any of them, just stared, until I came up. I sat on the edge of his bed, holding his hand. Everyone was watching us. He looked at me and said, "I don't like Mexican food," and that was it. My grandma confessed to my mom when she thought she was dying. She got better, that she tried to coat hanger abort her. Obviously it was unsuccessful. My grandma was a religious woman and decided that God wanted her to have this baby and treated my mom like her favorite child. This messed my mom up for a while, and it was even more awkward when my grandma surprisingly got better. After grandma died for real, my mom eventually made peace with it. After she was born, grandma never treated her like she was unwanted, so mom understood she was in a vulnerable place at the time. Mom was the 7th child in a poor family. Yay, the time before birth control. People have this romantic image of two people confirming and trying for a child, and that happens, but not always. Around 45% of pregnancies in the US are unplanned apparently. Not from experience, but it must be daunting to have a child, and I'd wager abortion crosses most minds. It's just about what the person has access to and how long it takes for them to make a solid decision. The actions of a panicked individual before birth do not have anything to do with the child, but rather the responsibilities and self-insecurities of raising it. My dad was adopted from a woman who went to my grandparents' church and got pregnant out of wedlock. My grandpa confessed on his deathbed that he had actually had an affair with that woman and he was my dad's real father, which was why he suggested adopting him in the first place. Whoa, that's intense. I can't imagine the mixture of emotions that your dad and grandmother must have felt. Feel like grandma would have known. She probably did, but back in those days you swallowed your pride and sucked it up. I'm not supporting knowingly cheating, but I can't imagine the heartbreak I would feel as the biological mother, watching my child grow up with his father and calling the woman I was second to mother, being known as the sinner who got knocked up by some random while the man who was having an affair came out of it as the generous Samaritan.
Hey, what's up sad boy crew, okpj here, thanks for watching the video. If it made you feel anything in your cold calloused heart, remember to leave a like, subscribe for more videos like this and some happier ones every single day, and I'll see you tomorrow.